Good Thursday morning. On behalf of KPCC and Southern California Public Radio, welcome to the Crawford Family Forum. Today, in our Drucker Business Forum, we are talking about the power and possibility of Asian-owned business, a strong and ever-growing part of our economy. Please welcome our host, KPCC reporter Josie Wong, and her guests.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at KPCC's Crawford Family Forum for another Drucker Business Forum. My name is Josie Huang, as you just heard. I cover the LA area's diverse communities as part of KPCC's Emerging Communities team. And before I introduce our esteemed guests, I just wanted to say I'm really excited about this topic today, just about the amazing growth in businesses owned by Asian Pacific Islanders, the API community. Just some crazy stats here. In California alone, there are over 600,000 API-owned businesses, over $182 million in sales, 900,000 jobs, and a $26 million payroll. And so we're going to look at today, why this growth is happening and how can you in this business, as I understand some business students, some budding entrepreneurs, and longtime business owners, how you can be part of this growth. And within that conversation, we'll also be talking about the buying power of the Asian American consumer, which is also growing by leaps and bounds. By 2017, Asian American buying power will top $1 trillion. And how can businesses make the most of that? And of course, at the end of this conversation, we'll leave time for your questions. But without further ado, I want to introduce our two guests today. Starting here, closer to me, is Dennis Huang, who's Executive Director of the Asian Business Association, has been for over 10 years now. And ABA is a nonprofit that works to boost Asian American small businesses. And among the many things that Dennis does, he also serves on the Asian Pacific American Advisory Council for Nielsen, the ratings company. And I have a feeling that your insight from being on that council will come in handy for us today. But most importantly, you're a Cub Master and head coach of the Norwalk Blue Hawks, which is a basketball team. So I understand. So please join me in welcoming Dennis. And of course, we also have with us Gary Yamauchi. He is, as you heard, a city councilman for the city of Alhambra, vice mayor right now. He is also owner and president of TriStar Vending, which I understand is one of the largest independent vending companies in LA County. And you started this in 1990? And this TriStar has been recognized by a number of different civic groups for its contribution to the community as an employer. Congrats. I should also mention that Gary has served as past president of the Alhambra Rotary Club, the West San Gabriel Valley YMCA, and the Alhambra Chamber of Commerce. Did I miss anything? Yeah. Wait, I did miss something. Gary is also a former professional bowler, right? So I feel inadequate now. Please welcome Gary. So let's just get right to it. Just the basis here, we know Asian-owned businesses are growing very quickly. And Dennis, I thought I'd just start with you. Can you talk about, from your perspective with the ABA, why are we seeing this explosive growth?
Well, I think there's a couple of factors. It's obvious a lot of times when the economy doesn't do well, people are being laid off, right? The natural transition is that they have to get food somewhere. They'll start their own business. So I think there's some commonality there where people are transitioning to being entrepreneurship. I think also there is an influx of immigration, folks still coming in. You've seen in the 80s that the Japanese folks are investing in America back in the 80s and the 90s, and about the millennium time, you'll have the Korean dollars coming in. This wave coming in is dollars from China, obviously. And what they're doing differently, though, coming in here is that they're really establishing business. They're hiring locals, which is a little bit different from the past Asian groups. But I think that has to do with some of the growth that's happening here in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And I think you were mentioning, well, with the down economy, people from all kinds of groups are starting businesses. Is there anything different about the API community? Is this more of an impetus?
I think that's one of the reasons, maybe because in Asia there's a lot of small mom and pop shops, and I think maybe that's a cultural issue that they'll come, and maybe that it's difficult for them because of that language barrier. So they'll start things on their own. It's easier for them to command their own future rather than waiting for something to happen and some employer hiring them. They'll create their own future that way, and that's kind of a Drucker thing as well. If the Drucker folks in the room.
And of course, we have on the stage with us a business owner. Gary, could you talk to us a little bit about why you started a business as an Asian American?
Well, I started a business at that time because I just saw an opportunity there that we had, and the business grew very rapidly to the point where actually my 3 sons are actually working for me as well. And so we had a lot of success in the 90s, and that carried on into the early 2000s. And so we're very, very happy with what happened. Many of the Asians that come over here, I really think that lately they are much more comfortable in meeting with like the city officials, et cetera. Years ago, I believe that many of them were almost scared of government and scared of City Hall. But now they're very comfortable. At least in Alhambra, I feel that they can come to visit our City Hall, and we will accommodate them as best we can. Many times that there's a little communication problem, but we have assured that our city staff that we want, when they leave the City Hall, that we want to make sure that they actually really know what we want from them before they leave. So we don't want any misunderstandings, and to make sure that it's very, very clear.
I think, Dennis, you were establishing that there is a lot of immigration to the U.S. from places like China, and I understand too that the vast majority of Asians living in the U.S. are actually foreign-born. Does that also translate to the business world? Are you seeing a lot of these these businesses being started by new immigrants?
You know, it's a kind of a funny thing because I see a lot of the businesses that were started and are starting up, but I don't really see the next generation taking over these same businesses. I see them going on to college and getting degrees and going into other fields rather than the entrepreneurs like their fathers or the first generations that came over here. So that's kind of an interesting topic right there.
You mean they're moving into like more humanities oriented?
You're seeing more lawyers and doctors and accountants and so forth. Very few young restaurateurs. They probably found out from working in the restaurant how difficult it is, and they said, "This is not for me. I'm going to school." And I think that's what's happening right now with the younger generation.
And so what are you seeing?
So there's a generational thing, I think, right? I think immigrants coming in, I think, again, I think that's where the entrepreneur drive comes in. They got to provide for the family, so they'll do what they can to provide. Opening a restaurant, opening any retail stores to do so. So you'll see probably more folks in that space, in the retail space, than more of a B2B space. But as they grow, as they learn more, as they understand the rules and regulations better, I think that's when you get into more of the professional service stage. But I think the ability to control your destiny, to control, maybe not the strong of a word, but to set that destiny, I think it's maybe self-rewarding for a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, they can control their hours. They can try to find that balance between work and home. So that's always an important factor for a lot of Asian Americans.
Yes. My parents themselves, I'm second generation, and there's something about immigrant culture where I've also seen my parents, they seem to take more risks. And that's something I've heard some of these immigrant entrepreneurs are willing to do. Are you seeing that as well?
Well, so it's funny. You see, like Korean American community and the Chinese community, we all talk about risk. Is that they'll pull, we're talking about access to dollars as well, because they try to crowdsource. That's the new word, but we kind of borrow dollars from, and they do it blindly. They'll just say, oh, because it's my friend's cousin. There you go. And those are crazy risks, and you think about it nowadays, right? People are looking at return on the dollars and stuff like that. Back then, it's a leap of faith. And because that leap of faith, that got them to where they are today, so they tend to do that more.
And aren't they also willing to take chances by going into maybe neighborhoods that folks shy away from, maybe because they're worried of like a high crime rate, or going into visit areas that aren't predominantly, Asian, for example?
Josie, I think that's true, but I think it's just basic statistic as far as starting a business, and they're looking for areas where they can start the business with the least amount of investment, and that's where you're going to find it. You're going to find the lower rents in the areas that are not the upscale areas, and they're willing to go out there and do that, and to me, that's their biggest risk factor. As far as the money is concerned, well, any entrepreneur, whether you're Asian or not, you're taking a risk when you open a business. But their additional risk is the areas that they go into, and hopefully that after going into those areas, they are turning those areas around slightly and making it more comfortable for other agents to come in, and that's kind of what happens.
Are we also, I'm sorry, Dennis,
I was just kidding. The mentality, I think, a lot of times, right? I'm not sure if they factor in the not so desirable areas. More or less is, well, I know I gotta make this much money. My cost is this. If I can lower my cost somehow, right? It's all about the bottom line. I think for a lot of business itself, it's really bottom line driven. So if they can lower that cost by getting to an area maybe less rent, they will do so. It's a value play, I guess.
At the same time, I know Southern California has probably the largest concentration of Asian American businesses in the country. We've been talking about how some API business owners are going into certain neighborhoods and maybe where it's not predominantly Asian American. Are you also seeing them fan across the region? Are they also clustering in like Asian dominant areas like the San Gabriel Valley, like South Bay? Or are you seeing it kind of all spread out?
Yeah, that's definitely true. Once an area starts to receive a certain amount of immigration, it just kind of snowballs and it gets larger and larger, because the area itself, like for example, the city of Alhambra, we right now have several the Asian type markets, and I don't know exactly how many we have, but probably 6 or 8 that they have a choice from, and that makes them very comfortable. So if they want to come to a city, they're gonna pick Alhambra is gonna be one of the top choices. So I got to get a plug in here someplace. But anyway, that's what happens, and then there's other factors involved from a city standpoint that offer a lot of good things for the immigrants, and healthcare and free clinics and stuff like that. And of course, you have clinics that speak their language for the immigrants who do not speak English, and so they feel very comfortable.
I think regardless of Asian or not, any groups or subgroups, right? When the folks came in, any group, you get clusters of them. So I think it's more of a natural migration. When folks come in, there are going to be the early adapters. I'm going to talk business terms. Early adapters that go into a certain area, and they like the certain area. Hey, you should come here, and then it brings them along. So that's why you still have pockets like Little Tokyo. They used to have Little Tokyo, Koreatown. They have pockets of groups. Also, you have if you look at the New York area, right? There's pockets of different different subgroups there as well that tend to kind of cluster together because of the food, because of the culture that gravitates them together.
Food. We've been talking about how these businesses start, restaurants and grocery stores. Do these business owners, Asian American business owners, do they stick to the smaller mom and pop shops? I mean, do they stay small businesses, or do you see any kind of like expansion? I mean, I know, for example, your company's grown a lot, but.
Well, we expanded. We were kind of fortunate in our expansion, but I think that's the purpose of the ABA, the Asian Business Association, that Dennis is affiliated with, and I was the former co-chair, and our Chamber of Commerce, we get out there and we try to help these businesses expand. That's our purpose. We want to see them expand. We want to see them do well. We want to see others come in and open businesses, and that's our purpose as the ABA and the Chamber of Commerce, is to do whatever we can to help that segment of the business community. So we appreciate any expansion. We'll be more than glad to help them if they need the help in any way that we can to help them expand, obtain maybe some more contracts from some of the larger corporations, et cetera. So that's kind of the function of the ABA and the Chamber of Commerce.
So I think there's two sets. So there's definitely the expansion type, but there's also some of them I observed where they're happy with where they are. They're happy with that one retail store that they have. And they would love the crowd to go out, but they go, this is my operation. I don't want to, maybe because they're staging their life or whatnot, they're just very happy with that comfortable. They don't want to expand. So we see that type as well. But yes, so ideally is for them to go mainstream and expand out into their marketplace. That's some struggle because of language barrier. I think that's a cultural barrier as well. That they may not want to do so. Maybe they don't foresee it, or maybe they don't have people that they trust. Trust is a big issue in the Asian community. So that'll be a couple of factors there.
Trust, you mean in terms of also expanding, so hiring a bigger work staff that they can trust? Because I think you were saying a lot of the new Chinese business owners are hiring from within the community. Yeah.
So there's a couple of things on trust. I think, yeah. So you're, first of all, the bigger companies coming in here, they're hiring locals. I think they trust that they will run. They understand the culture here more. So that's one other. The smaller shops, I think, and I hear stories about, well, because they're not part of the family. I just don't know.
I don't want to go on vacation. Yeah, right.
But now with technology, you throw a camera on there, you're good.
Right. So I guess, because there are some, you do see some very successful examples of API business that have grown, and one that comes to mind right away is Zappos. Tony Hsieh is probably one of the most famous CEOs out there, and other companies that maybe people don't know started by APIs, like Forever 21, I understand is, and Wahoo's Tacos. So I was thinking this is a good time to maybe talk about how folks who are starting out can get to this point of being a Forever 21 or growing their business. Wanted to just ask about, we were talking a little bit about the ABA, and how important is it to join groups like ABA to network? I mean, can you do this, can you go at this alone?
Well, I think, in fact, the expansion of my business, I could attribute pretty much to networking. And for 15 years that I was in business, and we had an expansion from we bought this business, we were doing $2,000 per month, and then we got up to almost $2 million in 15 years, and we never advertised at all. It was all through networking, and almost all of our leads have come from word of mouth, and so we've been very fortunate that way. So as far as networking is concerned, I put that right at the top of the list, and I myself still, I'm at all the ABA events, and I had a Chamber of Commerce mixer last night, and I still go to all those things very faithfully. So.
I think with a lot of social media, social media and other technology nowadays, I think people tend not to do as much as they did. This is a great show in here today. I think there's a lot of value in that face-to-face as well. You read people's nonverbal, and I think people, conscious or not, they do that. And I think that's when businesses happen, right? When you meet someone, you have a great rapport with them. Hey, this is good, and I think there's a lot of value with that. But regarding Chamber of Commerce's groups, industry groups, shows in Vegas still continue to sell out. There's a lot of value. Someone's believing it. Someone's believing that face-to-face. That's going to happen. So there's a value with that. So I would suggest folks with the association, with whether ABA or not, look at industry, right? There's an industry. And also whoever you're selling to, their industry. to go to their show versus the other one. So people always think of things in their industry, but not the folks that they sell to. So that's another ways to get out there. And those groups are very powerful because those are your potential clients. So getting out there allowed to be very important.
There's only so much time and money people can pay for membership fees. How do you, how many groups should you join to network? I mean, how much networking should you be doing on a regular basis?
Well, we did an interesting thing. I've been on the board of directors for the ABA for, I don't know exactly how many years, but the last 4 years I've been the co-chair. And one of the things I did as the co-chair was that I talked to the executive director, Dennis, and staff at the ABA and the staff at the Alhambra Chamber of Commerce. We have about 550 members in the Alhambra Chamber of Commerce. It's one of the largest chambers in Southern California. In fact, we have a budget that's larger than, believe it or not, Pasadena's budget. I think we're number 11 in all of Southern California as far as size is concerned. And that's because many of our city events are funneled and contracted through the chamber. But what we did was we set up a reciprocal agreement between the ABA and our Alhambra Chamber. So Alhambra Chamber of Commerce members can attend ABA events as a member, and likewise, ABA members can come to the Alhambra Chamber events as a member and pay the member fees or whatever it is. So you don't have to join both organizations to participate in the Alhambra Chamber and the ABA. You just have to join one or the other. And so that's been something we've done. We're going to try to expand that, I believe, into Monterey Park and maybe some other cities that have a large Asian population as in the chamber, their particular chambers of commerce, because the Asian Business Association obviously is 95% Asian, but the local, our Alhambra Chamber of Commerce, I'm going to guess we're 75, 80% Asian, all our membership. And like I said, we're like 550 members, and we're pretty strong chamber.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip, and I see people writing that down.
First of all, great work, Gary. You don't have to be Asian to join the ABA. We have some great success stories, some African Americans, some Latino Americans who continue to do well. They continue to thrive. I guess I want to make sure we have that out there. Because I think because of the name alone, people think that you have to be Asian, but that's not the case. But to answer your question about how many groups should you be involved with, I think there's a couple of things you should ask first. Number one, what is your purpose on being there, right? So you should be more focused when you're getting to an organization. What does that purpose look like, and what do you want to accomplish? I think a lot of times people go on these things, they kind of wait for things to happen, and maybe that's not a good approach. Be very focused in terms of what you want to get done. Second thing I would say is your contribution to that group. What can you contribute to that group? As any NGOs or non-government organizations, NGO or CBOs they call it. When you get to this, I think, and on any board that I serve on as well, is what value do you bring? I think that you continue to ask, am I doing this organization a favor by being there, whatever that looks like. I think that's very necessary because, as you call it, your credibility is on stake. And then the question is time, right? Then what time can you commit to it? I don't know if it depends on anybody. 5 seems to be a good number if you want to be active within that group. But some people just kind of join to join, and that's okay as well. But I think to be more focused, to contribute, to make an impact, you really got to look at it that way.
And we've been talking about how ABA is open to everybody, but of course most of the membership is Asian. For Asian business owners and people starting out, is it useful, or would you recommend that they join an API specific organization? What do you get out of that?
So I think it's kind of the bigger thing is opening that network. I think people go like we talked about earlier about clusters and stuff like that, and people living in their respective communities. Will they come to the association feel a little bit more comfortable than they do with the Los Angeles Chamber? Los Angeles Chamber is a great chamber, big chamber, but when you get there, are you not as comfortable? Are you lost, or are you people approaching you? We're here maybe because of the color of their skins and their background. They feel a little bit more friendly. So
And if you don't know
That-
the word in English, maybe you can use some other language.
Right, and there are different chambers out there. There are the Chinese chamber, the Korean chamber, where language is their comfort zone, right? They start with that commonality. So that's important.
Gotcha. And well, just a quick question for Gary, because I know your clientele, your customer base is, just spans the spectrum. I guess for you, you said you networked a lot, and it sounds like within ABA and also Alhambra. How are you able to get the word out to the larger population about your business?
Well, several things happen. Is that again we get back to networking, but prior to being on the city council, which I was first elected in 2004, but in the years of 2001, 2002, and 3, I was extremely active in the community as far as being the chamber president and the YMCA president, Rotary president, and so et cetera. So that gave me a lot of exposure, and it also gave me an opportunity to be invited to other boards. I was formerly a board member for the Los Angeles Music and Art School and a former board member for the East Los Angeles College Foundation. And through that kind of networking, I was able to get some more other business. People knew what I was in, and they would call me. We did very little solicitation in those years, but we were fortunate enough to have business come our way.
Yeah, no, that's great because marketing is like big overhead for folks, and you were spared all that. And everything we've been talking about today about networking and starting, it applies to mature businesses as well, right? It sounds like you keep on going to these events, and I mean, any different rules apply to people who've been in this business longer?
Well, in my case, to be honest with you, what actually happens is for example, let's take my involvement with the ABA since Dennis is here. I joined the ABA. I'll be honest with you, mostly because of Dennis.
Oh. But Dennis, you joined.
Yeah,
when did you?
he came and solicited us and whatever, and he seemed like a nice guy. He's always smiling, very happy guy, and so I said, yeah, well, I'll join the ABA. But then, when I was invited onto the board, and when I saw the board, now this was a board that everybody is really participating. I mean, when you have election of officers, everybody gets the little short arm and say, who wants to be president? Everybody is like this. But in the case of the ABA, we said, who wants to be president? We had 3 or 4 people put their hand up. We actually had to have an election. And that told me a lot that these board members are willing to get out there and do the work. Mm-hmm. And so I was very excited to continue on with the ABA board. And you have to continue networking. And what ends up happening is that these are fellow board members and so forth. They start to become your friends, and you look forward to seeing them, whether it's once a month or every 3 months, or it's the once a year planning retreat. You look forward to those things and renewing those friendships and so forth. So that's kind of what happens. Mm-hmm. At least that's what happened to me. So I'm very happy to continue to do networking.
Yes.
I think networking is a good case, but I think through networking you also learn certain things, right? What people are doing. So this is what I call the ABC of business, that you need to have the ABCs of business to be successful, which is attorney, banker, CPA. Those are essential to do that. But for as far as a mature business or more of a instead of a startup SBA may not look at you, right, for the loans, and cash flow continues to be an issue. I think SBA with loans and stuff like that, you need at least 2-3 years of track record to get that. So once you're ready to go, I think the SBA and the banks will kind of look at you that way. But I think there's a couple other things out here that that can help. There's a lot of different things. I mean, there's a lot of talks about minority certification. So that's another way to talk to corporations. If you're certified as a minority business owner, is that women-owned as well as Native Americans as well. So there's those certification, and there's different certification for each or different government agency as well as corporate America. So I think that's another the tool that people can help.
Mm-hmm. Now, within our conversation about optimizing your business, I wanted to also talk about Asian American consumers because they're on this parallel track with Asian American businesses in terms of this explosive growth. And I wonder over at the ABA, and I mean, for you guys, are you guys also thinking about how to tap into this market? I mean, we're talking about $1 trillion by 2017. You know, I wanted to, I guess for maybe everybody already knows this, but Dennis, I know you work at Nielsen, you work closely with Nielsen. Can you talk a little bit about who this person is?
I think this market has always been there. I know in the past I've heard that they threw out a number of 400 billion, 600 billion. Now the numbers continue to grow. But frankly, and this is the reason why we kind of push Nielsen in the sense because we need outside data, right, on this to see that market. I don't think people done enough research for that market, and I think that's why the genesis of this of the research was being placed is to see that hey, this is an untapped market that people can really go after. There's certain behavior issues that you'll see on the report. If you can still download it through Nielsen's website, but it's a great beginning to see the market. But I think there are experts in the room, and I think our members that can help translate and how to tap into that market. But once you know they talk about certain behaviors and shopping habits and things like that. But it's a fascinating market. I don't know what part you want to talk and get into details of. But I think it's just a very fascinating part in that people, it's a saving community. It's a community that will spend the dollars on the luxury goods. But I think there's a lot to be done for this market.
You know, this expenditures of the Asian community are really there's a misconception about it because the city of Alhambra, I keep using that as an example because that's really all I know. But, you know, 10 years ago, Starbucks would not come into the city of Alhambra, looking at the statistics, et cetera. But now, after they finally built one and they saw how well it did, they came a second and a third. Now we have 6 or 7 Starbucks within the city of Alhambra. And this is happening with other restaurants that are in Alhambra. Some of the ones that are doing well are opening a second location in the same city. And if you go to their second location, there are people standing outside. So the dollars that they are spending in Alhambra are really, they've kind of gone by the wayside. People have not really looked at it. But the large companies now are starting to see that, for example, our Target is one of the highest volume Targets in their chain. Our Walmart is probably one of the top 5 in their chain. And we have a Fresh and Easy, which I think number 1, 2, or 3 within their chain. And all these major businesses that we have in Alhambra are all really at the top of the chain, and they are also. Because of that, they're also expanding. They're making their buildings. The Target now is like a super Target, and it just keeps getting better and better. So we're very happy with that. And I think the developers now are starting to realize that there is a lot of money to be spent in Alhambra by the Asian American community. And they're starting to really look at it.
So why do you think there is this this growing clout of the Asian American consumer? Is it similar to the growth in API-owned businesses in that there's just been the spike in immigration or growth in immigration over the years? You've just got more Asian Americans here. Any thoughts?
Well, the first generation that comes over pretty much kind of stays to themselves. They cook at home and so forth. But the next generation, their children, they're just like, they're very Americanized already. They're, the example I use, because I go there a lot, is In-N-Out. And when In-N-Out was built, I used to drive through there and I think, I was curious as to whether they were going to make it or not because there was very, very few people that were going there. One of the reasons there were very few Asian Americans inside of In-N-Out. But if you go to In-N-Out today, that's all there is. It'll be 90% Asian inside the restaurant. And that just shows the changing culture And because of the changing culture, they're out there buying more things that they're familiar with, electronic things and stuff like that, which maybe the first generation were not that familiar with and not comfortable with. So I think that this is where some of the expansion comes from.
Do you guys think that API-owned businesses, because they're owned by Asians themselves, have a special advantage in terms of trying to, get into this market?
There might be some advantage, several large corporations now, they have certain quotas that they look for contracts. For example, a large company, maybe Metropolitan Water District or something, they might say that they want 12% of their contracts for minorities or something like this. And I think that percentage, that the quotas that they are putting on themselves are getting larger and larger every year. And so there's more contracts available to the Asian American businesses because of these quotas are expanding, and all the companies are seeing that the so-called sleeping giant is waking. So.
I think that's an interesting question. I guess I'm kind of on the fence on this. So do Asian businesses know how to market to Asian business? So the answer, I think the short answer is yes. They know because they're obviously in the community. They do that. But I also feel that in the community, when you're selling to the folks in the community with your API, they have, the margins are low. A lot of our members, when we talk to, they'll go, I want to go mainstream with my business because margin is bigger and we can do better that way. So I think they know how to market to them, and I think most of that is because they understand the value play, and we can get into that topic about the value proposition. They like the value play and they understand it, so they will, whatever they're selling or the services, it's more of a value play for the
Actually, Dennis, before
customers.
you go on, when you say with the community, the margins are lower if you
Yeah,
target-
so right, because of the value play. So when the profit margins are lower, I think when you're doing business, a lot of times when you're Asian, you're doing business in a community, the profit margins are lower than you would have in a traditional company.
Okay, just because it's a smaller pool, or
I don't know where the cost is, where they know they need to give better product or services, and then that'll drive up the cost. So the margin that maybe is supposed to be 20%, it's now 10%.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, do you think the fact that a lot of the Asian API business owners are multilingual, does that help in terms of?
Yeah, I think to me, I think it's a big advantage, right? Because I think the more you know, as the world gets smaller, the more languages know, you're gonna do better. And that's not just a language. I think it's a cultural thing as well. How you understand certain cultures will help in that businesses. And it's always like the chicken and the egg. I see it like that, because either business will drive business will drive migration, and that'll leads to how to understand the community better, or the other way around would be when you want to just go to immigrate and then learning the business afterwards. So I think that's always some back and forth there.
And we have some folks here who are not API, and maybe they also want to learn how to market to the Asian American consumer. Do they have to do anything different? Is it going to be a little bit more of a challenge for them?
That's a really interesting topic, because that is something that, in as far as the Alhambra Chamber is concerned and the ABA, I don't think we really addressed that yet. As far as a non-Asian American, how they can, work with the Asian community. We've never had too much specific discussion on that particular topic, but I think it would be a very, very interesting one, and something that we should consider talking about in the future.
So I'm sorry. There are going to be challenges, I think, like anything, right? I've known Mattel trying to go into Japan, for the extreme example. They tried to go into Japan with their stuff. Took them 7 times to get in, because maybe, according to them, they said because they didn't hire locals, right? They didn't hire locals to help them. I think when you go into a certain community where you're understanding it, I think you can do a lot of research, but without someone who experienced it, it's going to be difficult. there are agencies out there that we know of that are members. That's what they do. They help people and they help them go into that community. I think some expertise to start off would be great. So I think that's my advice is look at the folks that are in there and help them through that. I think would be better because I think it's always a risk factor. And if you look at it as any company taking a risk to go in, you want to minimize that. So I think I would suggest to hire some of the locals to get into it. But because there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of religion, there's a lot of way how you present your business cards, either with one hand with the Korean, with the Chinese, and then the bow is at 45 degrees, is at 90 degrees. Yeah, there's a lot, and you guys know because
Well, something I read about in the Nielsen report about the Asian American consumer that I wonder if it could be helpful to people here is that they're extremely tech savvy. And I mean, I would think like in that sense, maybe you should make sure you have a pretty robust website and maybe some mobile apps if that's the kind of business you're in. What do you think about that?
I think that the social media is really important. I mean, nowadays that is your advertising, and I think any smart businessman will make sure he keeps his website really up to date and fresh news and changing all the time. You don't want to have the same one over and over and over again, but you need to change it from time to time and update it and so forth. But that's the way that everybody's going right now. And it's very, very important that you network in that fashion as well.
So I think U.S. is behind, even though the Asian Americans are over-indexed in technology. I think U.S. is behind. So even a vending machine business, I think in Japan, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you can pay things with your phone. You can go to the vending machine, go boom, and you get your soda and the machines and stuff like that. So I think number one, they're behind. I think the fascination about upkeeping and up to date and technology, I think with Asian Americans is also fascinating. But I think the movement, and I was just talking to our member about that in the back, is that they're really moving to mobile technology, right? So the online play, the web play is great to have that. But the next thing is that mobile technology part, and I know that's an important topic with us. So we with the association, we'll do some trainings around that to let people know how to take advantage of that as well. So we see it. So we see things like this happening. So we try to make sure we deliver that content for our members.
Mm-hmm. And social media, besides providing for it in English, should people consider also offering it in other languages, say Chinese? And maybe I should ask you this, Gary, because I know in the city of Alhambra, I think some of the city organizations are using Weibo, the Chinese language social media platform. And I know corporations, some of the U.S. corporations have Chinese language sites now too.
Actually, you're correct there. In fact, we think that we're ahead of the game there. We just started to use that for our police department. Mm-hmm. And I think we're the first police department in the United States actually to officially use that. And I attribute, I mean, we have a great chief of police, but we really we really need to get into the Asian community as far as via the police department, because number one, we don't want the residents and the immigrants to feel like they're scared of the police. We want them to know that the police are there to help them. 911 is to help them. All these things that we have are really to help them be more comfortable living in our city. So,
but by the same token, should people use Weibo or Chinese language sites for their businesses, or is that just overkill?
I can't answer that. I really can't, because I can't read it myself. So.
I think these things are, I mean, technology is it's great, right? So you have a click of a button, the whole site changes to whatever language you want. Right. And I think the purpose of that is to relate to their customer. So you kind of going back in the sense of, well, what do you want this site? What do you want it to do, right? If you are intent to reach this particular cluster, this particular segment, technology can help you with that, and that's like a simple thing. I think that's more of the intent of these things, to relate to their customers than just to do it, reaching out to them. In like any market, if you don't think that market is good, then you may not want to do it. And we're just saying that the growth is there, and that's something that corporations should reconsider, thinking about kind of doing in the language so they can communicate. Now, granted, we're here in America, and folks speak English, and that's still the number one kind of a language here. but again, it's a way to relate to the customers, and if they want to capture that market, that's the way to do it.
So I think you guys probably have a bunch of questions for our panelists, and I think we're going to open that up to you guys right now. And if just raise your hand, and the foreign producer Janice will come to you guys. So I see, there's somebody right here.
Good morning. I'm obviously not Asian,
Really?
but I've been working with the Asian community since they came here in Monterey Park. When I worked in Atlantic Square, it was all Hispanic. When I finally left Atlantic Square working for that company or the landlord, it was turning Asian, okay? My problem is that trust. I've been unable to get Asians to trust our company, trust our ability to do the right job. We specialize in searching for locations and lease negotiations for chain stores. And by the way, I would like to make a comment. We represent Starbucks. We would have been in Alhambra the minute we got all the parts of our formula together, which includes the landlords being realistic, which includes the city allowing us to do what we need to do, and knowing that the community was ready for us, okay? We do very well in all the Asian community and the Hispanic community. My problem is, I heard you say some of the things about the difference in culture. I'm a very, this is crazy, I'm a very honest person. I'm a very dedicated and loyal to my business. I've been in business for 52 years. And we represent 70 chains throughout Southern California. But we have such a difficult time getting the Asian community, or the Asian people, to see us as trustworthy, to see that we can do the right job for them. And quite frankly, I'll give you an example. When Famima came here from Japan, they hired a fellow from Cushman Wakefield because he was Japanese. They didn't hire us. When in my first meeting with them, only one person out of four spoke English. The other three men didn't. And they didn't trust me because of the language barrier. So they hired this other guy who put him in, I think, 20 locations, of which I think only 2 or 3 remain today. The rest all failed. So how do I get the Asian community, the Asian entrepreneur, because we specialize in startup companies, to trust me that what I'm saying, what I can do for them, is better than somebody that speaks their language but doesn't understand our business?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think you offer a huge value proposition, right? Because you've been doing the experience and do things like that. So I guess kind of similar to what I was saying earlier, that to build that trust, sometimes you may need to partner with somebody locally that can broker the deal. It's kind of, I kind of say it in, I guess, like my Mattel example, right? Because maybe they didn't hire the local guy to help broker the deal for them. Maybe that's another solution. I know it's a simple explanation, but you brought up the example of the crush in Wakefield, right? That the person that was there. No. That you brought that example that he got the deal, right? Right. Mm-hmm. So I think. Well, the international. That's a huge real estate company. Sure. Mm-hmm. Right, but why did they end up going with that? And is it the person? So that's what I'm saying. Did you hire the right person to partner with you to broker the deal?
Okay, that's ridiculous. That for us to take somebody in the community who doesn't know a thing about what we do and how we do it, and train them so someday they say bye-bye, and they do the business without us. But they can come work for us, okay?
They're a different type of partnership. I guess I'm not saying equity partner, right? You could.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, Gary, did you want to talk about the trust factor?
This goes into what Josie was talking about earlier, about and the young lady here in the front, about how do you get into the Asian community as far as being a non-Asian is concerned. And again, that goes into the networking, and that's something that ABA hopefully in the future will address that, and we will do whatever we can to have our seminars or whatever tailored to that direction to try to help some of the non-Asians come into the Asian American market.
I imagine that's why you have non-Asian members of ABA. They're,
course,
that
right.
they're doing the legwork there. And
That's right, and they are there. A lot of the corporations are there on our board, et cetera. In order to reach the Asian community, sometimes they have information that they want to go out to the Asian community. They come to us, and we create a seminar or whatever on the particular topic that they want to express to the Asian public.
question back there? Oh, you want to wait for the mic? Wait. Stand up.
Hi, this is James. Gary, this question is for you. I just heard you say something so fascinating. I myself is in the internet marketing business, and we do social media. You mentioned the police department of Alhambra is actually using Weibo to communicate with the community. In terms of the business in Alhambra and Asian community, how do you see social media becoming a driving force that could maybe help business to leverage that and grow their connection with the Asian community?
Well, going all the way back to 2004 or 5, we really realized our city council really realizes the importance of small business being the backbone of any community, and we've done everything we can to try to make it comfortable for people to come in, especially the immigrant population, to come in and start a new business. In 2010, proudly, we were awarded the most business-friendly city for a population of over 60,000 people. And we were very proud of that. And I think that's something that goes on our website. Immigration and developers see that. And so when they look to open a new business or start some kind of project or something, they're going to go to Alhambra is one of the top places they're going to come to because they see that we are a very, very business-friendly city. And then last year, we received an award for being one of the most livable cities in the United States. In fact, we were listed as number 21 in the United States, and that has to do with all the services that we have in the community, mainly healthcare and social services that we have for the various residents. So.
But Gary, to the gentleman's question, have you noticed that a lot of the businesses in Alhambra are they making the most out of social media?
Well, again, this goes back to our Chamber of Commerce, and we've had several seminars and so forth on social media and how to use it, and we've had experts come in and give talks on social media and help you set it up and so forth, and give you advice on how to use that social media. So through the Chamber of Commerce, we've had a lot of people begin using the social media, and we think that our chamber has helped them, get started with that.
Any other questions? Did you want to add anything?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Tanny, and my question is, well, first, I am the second generation now taking over a family's business. We have a silk screening business, and when my dad was doing it, the technology to make signs was not quite there, so a lot of it was handmade. Now with digitizing it, people can make it overseas and have it sent in for a lot cheaper. So my question is, he used to do a lot of business with Asian Americans and other Asian business owners. Now, with my sister and I taking over, we're finding that it's harder now to do business with Asian business owners because they can get signs in China for, a lot less. How can I start to penetrate that market again?
It's tough. Like it's tough. I guess to that is that business is evolving, right? How business retail is changing, and how we get products to consumers is changing. But I think that businesses are getting smart in terms of finding that niche. So the only advantage I can see for you is the folks in China is not going to have that interface with your clients. When people meet each other and they trust you, you're going to have a better rapport than they will ever have. If the factories that kind of, I'm not going to say the wrong words, messed up on an order, who are they going to turn to rely on locally? You have that advantage. So I think businesses have to think what advantage they have and find that niche even better.
Should she do outreach? Should she be going to potential clients who might not be at these networking events that you guys hold?
Right. I mean, that's a good one, Josie. That's really advantage. Just continue to visit your current client and ask your clients, hey, maybe there's someone who can use our services, right? You develop it that way. It's like any sales tactic would do. But I think that you gotta, so first you identify, hey, maybe that's my advantage, and then from there on, how do you strengthen it?
A couple more questions.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Wynn. I've heard a lot today about networking, and which I'm glad to do. But do you guys know, or can you guys speak on any mentoring programs that you guys might have? And Gary, if you're open, I'd love to be a mentee.
Well, you know.
Do you want to be the mayor of Alhambra? And that's, I'm kidding.
You know, it's not going to take much for you to find good mentoring programs in the Asian American community. In fact, my wife is sitting out here. Well, raise your hand, Lynn. If you're looking for a mentoring group, just go talk to her. And she started an Asian American professional. So I think AAP. I don't even know what the name of it is.
AAPA.
But they do a lot of
no.
mentoring. And this was all started when she was working at Edison Company. And they started a mentoring program, and it's gotten really large, and they have some wonderful mentors, and there are people that, I mean, they started off with like 20-something people. Now they have hundreds of people trying to get onto that program. So catch my wife over there, give her your card, and I'm sure she'll be in touch with you.
What about you, Gary?
So there's a question
the
out
buck
there.
to your wife.
I know. So Ken, I think there's a couple of things. I think the Asian community, it's hard. I'll tell you, it's hard. I think we talk to our businesses and say, hey, could you pave the way, help someone out, reach our arm back and help them out? It's hard. It's a cultural thing. It's hard, but we continue to talk to them. I think folks like Linda and their group, the Asian American Professional Association, AAPA, they do that. We know that there's a need, so we'll continue to push that as an organization kind of point of view, but it is not easy. That's a great question. We continue to fight that. For our members, just to get them over to say, hey, it's okay to help. You don't need to show them where the next paycheck is, but you can show them the ABCs of businesses, right? So that's something, which is the attorney, banking, CPAs. You can help them. That's a huge recommendation for anybody.
Why are there reservations? Are there concerns about sharing trade secrets, competition?
So yeah, this is only me talking now. I think it's because there's a not so good attitude. If I can do it, you can do it too. And I think that's a cultural issue that we're dealing with. But I think it's getting better. The second and third generation folks coming in, they go, hey, that's something we need to give back. Business done you well. That's how you should give back to businesses.
Mm-hmm. And mentoring, I mean, you can look outside the API community for that as well, right? Are there SCORE is an organization that provides
Right. So
mentorship,
there's a lot. No, that's consulting. SCORE is a consulting, yes. So that'll help. There's an organization like LEAP, Leadership Education of Asian Pacifics, how you can grow within that company. So there's different types of mentoring. Some's entrepreneurship, some is professional, like for corporate America, how you grow in corporate America.
Gotcha. So we'll take a couple more questions over there.
Hello, my name is Elaine. And with some of the changes that we're seeing in enclaves, so if we think about Koreatown, for example, or about areas like Alhambra, and some of what we're seeing happening with demographic shift, where do you see businesses maybe changing in areas like that traditionally were thought of as being serving almost exclusively, a Korean community or, a Chinese community? We could also look at, areas like Westminster.
Well, in the city of Alhambra, we have so many new businesses opening all the time that we're actually running out of space for more retail businesses. And we're happy about that. We like it, and people keep coming here and keep seeing us, and we keep getting requests for businesses to come in, and it certainly keeps us a little bit ahead of the game. Our budget is balanced for at least 2 to 3 years, so we're in pretty good shape right now. I don't know if I could specifically answer your question, but that's all I can tell you. The statistics are not going down. I believe Alhambra probably, I want to guess we're around 54% Asian right now. But in the high schools are like 58%. So we know that in the future that 54% is going to continue to rise, and it's not going to level off, and it's not going to go down. So we're not doing anything specifically to meet that particular challenge, but we're just going on and taking things step at a time as issues come up.
So actually, does that answer your question? Was it more just about within or enclaves like K-Town and Westminster? How are folks there dealing with the shift in?
Because there is, I guess you could call it more mixing and an interest. So we're looking at power and possibility of Asian American business, right? So not only looking at those who own the businesses, but those who are going to be patrons. So if we look at these enclaves and who was living there and some of the changes that are happening there and some of the attention to the consumer power of Asian Americans, those who are walking into the store, not only those who own them. I mean, do you have any thoughts about that? I'm sorry, my question was not more articulate.
No, I was trying to understand. So you're talking about either there's a shift in demographic or the patrons that go.
Both.
Okay. So far as the patrons that go, so my example, going back to the food, is everybody's easy we can relate to, right? So it used to be here. It used to be Chinatown, right? That's the only game in town. You go there to get some good eat. That was it. But that as it changes, as they go through San Gabriel Valley, I think people go. They tend to go where they know. Hey, maybe that's more authentic for me, right? So they would try new things. And I think that's usually what happens when you have a concentration of folks in that, like Koreatown. You would go there. If you want good Korean food, you go to Koreatown. So I think that's more the shift. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question that way.
There is a shift. Koreatown shifted to Oaxaca. Okay, we feel that the shift starts with the place of religion. If there's a religious group that builds a temple or church or whatever, that group will move over to that territory. The funny thing about Westminster is that they've stayed tight. And the Vietnamese and the Laotians that live out that way, they're a tighter cultural group who are trying to mainstay who they are. And the young Vietnamese I've hired in our company are so different than their parents that there's a friction there, okay? And so as the younger generations become Americanized, I think somebody already put that in there, 3 generations from today, we're going to have much more mixed neighborhoods. And that's really what we're fighting to get. I know that culturally you want to stay where the food's familiar, the places of religion are familiar, but as the young people get out in the world and learn to have friends from college and other schools, whatever they do, they're going to be intermixing in other parts of the neighborhoods, and they're going to start spreading out.
Thank you. Did you?
Well, I think you and I should have a deeper conversation.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe you should go to an
it's
ABA
a good
meeting
stuff.
or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. That'd be great.
Unfortunately, we don't have any more time. I know a lot of you guys have to get somewhere after this. So I just want to thank our panelists here. I wondered if we could all give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
I think some of them, maybe both, will be sticking around if you want to try to chat with them and see if they'll be your mentor or something. So thank you guys very much.
Great. Thank you, Jesse.